Welcome back to Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. Last time, we fought some Lagoo's quote-unquote bandits in the desert, actually freedom fighters, and found out about the whole slave trade. And we also found out that, Nasala just did a pretty bad thing, and the repercussions of that are about to happen right now. This chapter basically begins the morning after what happened at the end of the last one. So, that's the first instance of Oliver's theme, Power Hungry Fool, which you might recognize from Super Smash Bros. According to some interviews, when the composer first showed the director of this game that song, apparently the director burst out laughing. I'm actually kind of interested in the whole creative process that goes into doing the music, because you'd think the director would only just tell them a vague idea of what they want the song to sound like, and then they'd have to wait until they came back to them, but it was pretty much perfect. Anyway, back to what's going on here. As you can see, we've brought Tormod to the Apostle herself. Okay, that's good. That's good. The Senators aren't here. That is great. The two Holy Guard are the few people here that we can actually trust. I think the Senate is more than just granting approval by doing nothing. They're actually actively participating. And awesome moment for Ike right here. So that's what this has all been building up to, us being sent out on these missions without getting any idea of what they actually entailed. That's why I wasn't able to say much during those story scenes. I didn't want to give that reveal away, but I hope some of you managed to figure this out. It's a pretty good reveal, in my opinion. So, Ike has another mission, and this will hopefully be the last. And there's a reason why I've been seeing a lot of cutscenes with that guy. We're about to meet him directly. All that stuff has been... These two parallel subplots seems like they're about to intersect now. And it's lucky that we're going to get to him right now, because Rayson could use our help at this point. So we seem to be being employed at this point as investigators rather than fighters, but considering this is a Fire Emblem game, it's pretty obvious to tell how this is going, and obviously Soren was the MVP since he got the one and only kill on that map. And yes, Tormod and Maureen are considered to have joined in that chapter, but I'm going to give their bios now. Look at all that bonus experience. I'm going to be spending a lot of that right now, because pretty much everyone is going to be promoting at this point. Before I do that, though, I might as well show these two. So here's Tormod. Tormod is, interestingly enough, the last unpromoted Bjork to join. Because of this, he might need a lot of bonus experience to catch up if you're planning on using him. And if you've been using Soren or Ileana, chances are they're way ahead of him by this point. Tormod's overall stat build is very balanced all round. He's a bit more durable than Soren and Ileana are, but overall his magic, skill, and speed are kind of average. Like Ileana, he has decent strength for a mage, so he doesn't get weighed down by tomes all that much. And even though his strength is okay, you still probably shouldn't give him knives. It's a terrible idea on any of the unpromoted mages. Now, usually I wouldn't recommend using this guy over Soren or Ileana. Both of them have much greater availability, and they tend to end up stronger. Tormod does have two unique things going for him, though. The first is starting out with a C rank in fire magic. This actually lets him use meteor tomes at base, and there's actually a pretty funny speedrunning trick that you can do later in the game thanks to that. You don't get the meteor tome for a while, and once you do get it, there'll be a pretty strong sage who joins with it, but being able to meteor two enemies in the space of one turn is useful sometimes. The other asset though, and the thing that probably makes Tormod most worth using, is his unique starting skill, Celerity. You never get a scroll for this, so Tormod is the only character in the game to have it. This is a pretty simple skill, it just boosts movement by 2, kinda like the boots item, and yes, it does stack with boots if you want to use those on him. So Tormod moves very far for a magic user, which is definitely useful in a game dominated by cavalry. So it may take a lot of bonus experience to get him trained, but Celerity alone might make Tormod worth using. And here's Maureen. And he's unique in that he starts out with this item, the Demi-Band. This lets any Laguz transform and untransform at will, just by equipping or unequipping this item. However, it does give reduced transformation gains. I'll admit, Maureen is not a character that I use very often, so it's a little hard for me to talk about him, but I'll try. Maureen seems designed to be more of a speedy tiger as compared to Mordecai's Mighty Glacier build. Despite being several levels higher than Mordecai to start, he only has 1 point of strength more than Mordecai's base. He makes up for that though by having much higher speed. And that makes him quite a bit stronger than Mordecai will be offensively at this point. Maureen's growths are also better than Mordecai's overall. And he also transforms a little bit faster than Mordecai does, starting with a 5 on the gauge rather than 0. That doesn't really mean that much when he comes with the Demi-Band though, which lets him transform immediately, at the cost of some stats. Maureen is decent in combat at this point if you want to use him. I personally don't really use him all that often, only because I find that at this point in the game, most of your Bjork characters will be promoting, and so there's less need for a strong Laguz character. He's still decent though. One other thing about Maureen is that if you're not using him, he's actually a pretty good candidate for a smite skill scroll that we'll be getting later in the game. He'll fill a very similar role to Mordecai in that regard thanks to his massive weight. But if you think one smiter is useful, two is even more so, especially in some late game maps that give you a ridiculous number of deployment slots, so you'll have a lot of filler options, and a smite Maureen makes for a great filler unit. Leth doesn't really need it all that much because she's guaranteed to transform at the start of every map anyway, but Mordecai could use that actually. Either that or Maureen himself, he's pretty powerful too. There are some Lagoos that the Demivan doesn't work on though, but I'll get to that later. For now, I think I might actually trade that to Mordecai. Yeah, the Lagoo Stone is different. The Lagoo Stone just instantly transforms you as normal, but it has limited uses. I've got one of each gem. That's kind of funny. Let's just convoy some of my treasure. Where's Volk? There you are. I really should have given you the Lagoo's Guard. I was kind of dumb in the last chapter. Speaking of me being dumb though, I have to do this now. I can't believe I've held off on this, but at least we have a new gem to sell. Here we go. White gem, blue gem, and red gem. And notice how you can't sell occult scrolls because they are very limited. Finally, those are sold. Now let's quickly check out the shop to see what they're selling. No throwing weapons at all, but they're selling light magic, I guess because they figured that if you're using Rice, maybe he'll be promoted by now. Elfunder is nice, but that 6 weight is kind of bad. Also, Ileana already has one of those, so don't really need to get a new one. Doesn't seem like there's anything new at the Forge. Okay then. Gonna equip that in preparation for my bonus experience spree. And now, actually, let's take some extra weapons for Stefan. I don't want to be using the Vague Katai all the time, or Varg Kati, I think it is. I'm not really sure how to pronounce that, but yeah, Stefan can use pretty much everything that isn't a personal weapon. So, I can finally do this now. Swordmaster plus Killing Edge equals great. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm actually going to be using Stefan on my main team. I don't intend to give him Radiant Dawn transfer bonuses though, but he's gonna be pretty useful for me during Path of Radiance. Stefan is one of those characters that I like using in this game, but not in the next game, for certain reasons. Anyway, you can probably afford to take another sword. Yeah, another steel sword should be fine. Okay. Now, before I do supports and stuff, I do want to show something. That skill that we just got, Guard. Guard has a skill % chance of activating on any attack, and when it activates, the enemy can't counterattack. This skill actually combos very well with Vantage, and a fun combo that I used in my first playthrough, well, in my previous playthrough of this game, is that I put both of them on Jill, had her fly out into the middle of a bunch of enemies, and equip a hand axe. Basically, everything would attack her, and most likely, she would go first, hit them with a hand axe, and they wouldn't be able to counter. That was pretty fun. So Vantage Guard is probably as good as Vantage Wrath. Won't be able to give you the Vantage Wrath combo until you promote, though, and gain 5 extra capacity, unless I get rid of Miracle, but I guess it's better than nothing. I'm considering who I give Guard to in this playthrough. I could give it to Jill again, which might not be a bad idea, but I was also thinking that it might help on Soren, especially since it kinda stacks with Adept, I think. I'd have to remove Counter, but let's be honest, has Counter really done anything for me in this run? I don't think so. The problem is, then what do I give Jill? Jill is great and she could really use some skills. I definitely like Guard. Later on, I might actually give her Adept. There is a scroll for that. But I'm kind of considering... I mean, Soren doesn't really get attacked all that often, but... And he can attack from 2 range and avoid counters, but against enemies with ranged weapons, Guard could be useful. I guess I'll debate that for now. I might actually give that to Jill later. We'll see. Also, you have Astra, and that's pretty much all you need for now. Astra's actually not great in this game. A lot of people think that Adept is better, but it's fine for what it is. Now, it's experience time, and I do mean a lot of experience time. Firstly, 2 points on Nephany. Please get a better level up than you did when I practiced this segment. Well, Strength. That's fine. And her Strength is kind of averaged out a bit, which is good. Now the one I'm really worried about. I think Jill has only gained a single point of Strength since she joined at level 8, which is horrible. This is just the playthrough of everyone gaining bad Strength. Well, okay, good Strength. That's fine. That is just... I can't believe that happened, though. It's insane. It's like nobody's gaining strength in this run. Except Soren early on. Okay, hopefully I, reverse jinxed that. Now, I'm going to hold off a little bit on you because I'm going to save the promotions for last. Obviously, I do not need to give you any bonus experience. Your stats are fine as it is, and in fact, they'll carry you for most of the game. Gatry. I actually want to use Gatry on my team, and I haven't been using him all that much, so he's going to get a bunch of bonus experience. That's pretty much the best I could hope for, though that skill is a little bit bad. His skill growth is actually supposed to be pretty decent, so don't know why his skill isn't that good here. Well, at least people are getting strength now. Also, is that our first capped stat unpromoted? I think that is. Ideally, I want to save a lot of this for Mist too, but that is actually pretty good. I said earlier that I'd use Gatry, and he's been falling behind a bit. Now, these level ups have been pretty much standard. I'm running through most of my bonus experience here, and it'll cost quite a bit to promote my characters. Because, yeah, see, here's the thing. Normally, I'd use my 2 Master Seals now. But the only reason I haven't is because I need to use them on Oscar and Boyd before Chapter... This is actually not a bad Gatry. This is probably better than the Gatry I had in my first playthrough, which is good. But yeah, I need to use them on Oscar and Boyd. Because, yeah, I need to have them both promoted before Chapter 19. Now, here's the question. Which of these 3 do I promote with bonus experience? Actually, wait a minute, I probably want to, yeah, do that first. Whoever's not going to promote with bonus experience here will be promoting during the chapter itself, so I'm fine with that. Not great, but not bad either. Either Nephany or Gatry, because I'm definitely promoting Jill, since she's amazing. In fact, I should probably do that now. This is mostly so I can finally get her started on axes. She doesn't look all that different, though. Still, this music is great. And a pretty nice balance of strength, skill, speed, and defense. Just what you want in a Wyvern Lord. Also what you want in a Wyvern Lord? Axes. Finally. Even with an E rank in axes, that's pretty much enough, because that lets you use hand axes and steel axes. Anyway, I'm actually considering promoting Gatry here, only because he needs the movement boost on promotion probably more than Nephany does, and I haven't used him for a little while, so I might want to make this chapter his time to shine. So, it's Gatry promotion time. I kind of like how generals look in this one. As I've said before, though, some of their battle animations look very robotic. And that's Gatry's promotion. He now has an E rank in swords, which is not anywhere near as useful as an E rank in axes, but it at least means he can fight axe users decently. So I'm going to go ahead and, might not need that. Let's see if I have any spare. I've got a spare iron sword, let's use that. Other than that, he's fine. Jill, though, you're not going to be needing that for a long time. I probably don't even need your regular steel lance anymore. You can go ahead and take one of those, and yeah, I've got a whole bunch of hand axes, take one of those. Probably don't even need the javelin now that I've got hand axes. Most of the enemies we'll be fighting in this chapter are going to be lance users, so might as well actually take 2 of those. And I can equip the Wyvern Band the whole time this chapter, because again, we'll be needing the Lagoose Guard. 75 hit rate is, but it's fine. Jill's skill has got a lot higher. Okay, so that's that. Gatry's fine on weapons. Soren is... yeah, Soren... actually, no, Soren is not fine. Let's go ahead and give Wind and take a... you're probably not going to be using any more than that heal staff. I like to have Soren on hand as a backup healer. And Ike's fine. I think at the moment we're pretty much good. So support. There we go, finally, Ike and Soren B. It took a while to do this. Now, there's actually a lot of people who think that the plot only makes sense if you do this support. Because, remember how in Chapter 15, Soren was feeling off about being in Benyon? This is never actually addressed during the plot, but it's completely brushed aside after this point, implying that something happened to make Soren feel better. Given where the B support unlocks, see, as you can see here, it seems like the story expects you to do this B support. Because like I said, if you don't do it, there's nothing in the plot that makes Soren feel better, and the whole issue of him being moody is completely brushed aside. Anyway, I'll shut up for a moment, because Soren's about to give a little bit of backstory. That means Soren's kind of the opposite of Nino, actually. So, cliffhanger support, which is always annoying in a game that has support limits, but thankfully I am getting the A. Yeah, I'm sure all of you would already guess Soren had a terrible childhood, and by the way, that's not even the worst of it. Soren hasn't explained everything about his past. We won't get the full deal until, yeah, basically Soren's backstory is slowly hinted at across both games, but yeah, let's just say that as bad as that seems, it actually gets worse. And I don't think there's anyone else I can do supports with, unless I want to go for Titania and Mist, which is a little bit mood whiplashy at this point in the game. Actually, something that I want to say here, though, Maureen. Maureen is a character who I don't use very often, and that's a shame. He's actually a very interesting character, especially in his supports. They really go into what being a former slave does to your psyche, and it's actually pretty disturbing. So, in his supports with Z-Hark, I believe, he mentions that he always keeps sword polishing equipment on him at all times. Why? Because his former master used to make him polish his sword. His master would beat him brutally if he didn't have the materials to do so on hand when he was asked. Because of that, Maureen instinctively always keeps those polishing materials on him at all times. It's just... seriously. His backstory is incredibly disturbing. And it's a shame that his character isn't really explored all that much unless you get his supports. I don't think he talks very much in base conversations, and most of it is just him appearing with Tormod. Speaking of Tormod, we haven't got many of Tormod's supports yet, but he does support Soth, which gets kind of a funny callback in Radiant Dawn, where most of you probably are aware that Soth looks very different in that game, and Tormod doesn't look all that different, and he's kind of jealous. Like I said, Maureen doesn't really get a lot of focus in conversations outside of Tormod. Oh, right, I probably spoiled that early, but it was sort of obvious. Okay, yeah, that's actually a great conversation. And this conversation, remember how I was saying last time that recruiting Stefan also gave you something in the next chapter? This is that something. Ike echoes everyone's sentiments ever. Again, when I first played this game, I had no idea who this guy was when I first read his name in a walkthrough. Otherwise known as the guiding hand of someone reading a guide. This is the other aspect of Stefan's character. He's pretty much one of this continent's master swordsmen. Oh, it'll be very, very powerful. Trust me. And from that, you get an occult scroll. So if you don't recruit Stefan, you've lost one of your only occult scrolls in the game. I can't use that just yet, but considering what he gets out of the occult scroll, that conversation implies that's how Ike canonically learns Ether, which is interesting. So yeah, Stefan's more important than most people think. I think we've done everything, let's head out to the actual chapter. Yeah, we're on official apostle business. I'm sure you'll let us in. Ah yes, the classic D&D tactic of having some people talking while a few other party members make stealth checks and sneak into the building. Are the benefits of sending characters with high charisma to do that. Well, at least she gave us proof. So, funny thing about the inside of this manor is that, when I was playing, I mean, actually it was Radiant Dawn, but, yeah, let's just say you visit this manor in Radiant Dawn as well. So, I was playing it while I had an episode of Critical Role on the background, from the new campaign. I was actually watching it live, and just as we entered the manor, Matt Mercer was describing a place as gaudy as for... Yeah, you get the idea. But I just laughed so much when I heard that because, basically Matthew Mercer just unintentionally narrated perfectly this place. Like, gaudy as F pretty much describes Oliver's abode perfectly. Yeah, you'd figure someone like this would be pretty good at hiding evidence of, slavery. I can just kind of imagine how this would look. However, it looks like the other group had luck. Yeah, I think we know what that means. That's very damning evidence, if we can prove it. This line's actually significant, so there are actually models for non-royal herons in the game's unused content, and none of them have white wings. They're all kind of brownish looking, although their battle models are horribly glitchy, so that's not really an indication. The art book does have official art of non-royal herons though, which is interesting, seeing as you never actually see any of them in this game. Of course you would do that option! Of course you would go with that! It's fight time. We've got an indoor chapter, we've got a few bodyguards to get through, and, yeah, this place, and I just love how you can just see him running away there. We also have, someone with a portrait here. And someone else with a portrait who's obviously the boss, so take a guess as to which one of these two is recruitable. Hint, it's not the one with black and red armor.